My name is Adam Green. I'm 30 years old, and I work as a software developer in Seattle. I've spent my entire life playing the part of the responsible one, paying the bills, fixing the house, and making sure my family's financial problems don't drown us. Meanwhile, my sister, Sophia Green, has always been the golden child, the one who gets all the attention, the accolades, and now, the vacation she's always dreamed of. I don't blame her, really. I've just never been in the spotlight, and truth be told, I've gotten used to it. But lately, something's been off. I've always known that my family has its secrets, but I never imagined how deep those secrets would go, or how they'd end up tearing us apart. When my mother casually told me that Sophia was going on the trip, and I wasn't, I laughed it off. But deep down, something cracked inside me. I just didn't know how much damage had already been done until it was too late. And the truth? I'm about to burn it all down, whether they like it or not. The house was eerily quiet when I got home. The air felt heavier than usual, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in the last few hours. The laughter downstairs made me pause, the voice of my mother echoing through the hall as she talked to Sophia, arranging the last-minute details of her trip. I walked in, and immediately, it hit me, I wasn't invited. "You're not going, Adam," my mom had said earlier. "We can't afford 2 tickets. Sophia is going instead." I'd smiled. Of course. I understand. But I didn't. I didn't understand how my sister, who had never worked a day in her life, could get everything she wanted while I, the one who kept the lights on, was left to watch from the sidelines. And it wasn't just a vacation. This was just the latest in a long string of disappointments. Birthdays that passed without so much as a happy birthday, Adam, while Sophia got lavish gifts. My own graduation went unnoticed, but Sophia's cheerleading competition? They'd been front and center. Always her. Never me. I took a deep breath, walking past my mother as she continued on, excited about the spa treatments, the beach excursions, and the much-needed break for Sophia. The words were a blur now. I had already checked out mentally. I needed something more than their half-hearted praise and fake smiles. But I had no idea what I was about to uncover. Then it happened. As I moved to the kitchen, something caught my eye on the counter, an envelope, out of place, sealed with a corporate logo. The name on it wasn't mine. It wasn't even Sophia's. I walked over and glanced at the documents inside. Transfer of property. My father's name was on the top, along with a business partner's, Daniel Blake. A chill ran through me. I glanced down the hall toward the living room. My mother was still talking, not noticing my hands trembling. I couldn't just let this go. I needed to know. So I slipped the envelope under my jacket, hoping no one would notice. The last thing I needed right now was for them to figure out I was onto something. I waited. It wasn't until hours later, after everyone had gone to bed, that I finally opened the envelope and read the contents. My heart dropped. They were selling the house. And not just any house, the one I'd worked myself to the bone to pay for, the one that held every memory of my childhood, my sacrifices, and my struggles. They were selling it without even consulting me. My signature was forged. I should have known. They don't play fair. And now, neither will I. As the weight of the betrayal hit me, the floor creaked in the distance. Someone was awake. A shadow passed beneath the door, and I froze, barely breathing. It was her, Sophia. The one who had everything handed to her. The one who was about to take away everything I had worked for. She knocked once, then stepped in, her eyes narrowed. "You know what's happening, don't you, Adam?" I could feel my chest tighten. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her gaze sharpened. "Don't lie. I know you've seen the papers. Don't you want to know the real reason they've been keeping you in the dark?" I swallowed hard, feeling the floor beneath me slip away. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was bigger. Much bigger. And as I looked at my sister, I knew that this night would be the beginning of the end. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, watching the faint shadows flicker across the walls as the wind pressed against the windows. There was a pit in my stomach, something I couldn't shake. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was the weight of knowing I had been played. All these years, I had given everything, but the truth was, I'd never been part of the plan. Sophia had left the house by the time I went downstairs. The silence in the kitchen was thick, the smell of coffee still hanging in the air from this morning. I grabbed a mug, not sure whether I was more tired of the game my family had been playing or just plain tired of playing my part in it. I opened my phone. The email from my father's business partner, Daniel Blake, was still there. "Urgent, we need to talk about the house," it read. I knew I needed to dig deeper. I just didn't expect to find what I was about to uncover. The click of the front door jolted me out of my thoughts. My father. He stepped inside, looking like he hadn't slept a wink. He wasn't the man I remembered. He was a shadow of himself, always tense, always distracted. I had tried to ignore the signs, but now, they were impossible to deny. "You get some rest?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation casual. It was hard to act like everything was fine when my world felt like it was crumbling. He didn't answer. His eyes were bloodshot, his lips tight. He walked straight to the kitchen, pouring himself a drink. I stood there, waiting, not sure how to start. "So," I said, the word hanging in the air like an accusation, "the house." He froze, the glass halfway to his lips. He turned slowly, his gaze locking on mine. "I'm handling it, Adam. We don't need to talk about this right now." But I had to. "What do you mean, handling it? What's going on with the property?" His eyes flickered for a moment, and then he set the glass down, his voice low. "I've been dealing with some things. Financial issues. But it's under control. I'll fix it." I wanted to believe him, I really did. But something told me it wasn't that simple. "Dad, I saw the documents. You're selling the house, aren't you?" His expression didn't change. "We don't have a choice, Adam. Your mother and we're trying to save what we can. You'll understand when you're older." I clenched my jaw. Save what we can. I had been part of this family my whole life, and now I was nothing more than an afterthought. It stung more than I wanted to admit. Then the room grew colder. I felt like I was suffocating. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked, the words coming out harsher than I intended. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then, almost reluctantly, he spoke again. "It's complicated. I've made mistakes. But we'll fix this." I was about to ask him what that really meant when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. "I think it's time we had a talk," it said. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and turned back to my father. "You've been hiding something from me, haven't you?" I demanded. His gaze hardened. "Drop it, Adam." The tension between us hung heavy, but before I could push further, there was a knock at the door. I went to answer it, expecting a neighbor, but instead, standing there was Rachel Monroe. She worked at a law firm downtown, and I'd known her for years. She was my only real ally, the one person who never judged me. She gave me a quick smile, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to play it off. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "I found something." I blinked. "What do you mean, you found something?" Rachel reached into her bag, pulling out a manila folder. She opened it and placed a stack of documents on the table. Property transfer forms, bank statements, a list of debts that went way beyond the house. I skimmed the papers, my mind racing. These are from my father's accounts." "Why do you have these?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slid another sheet across the table, a withdrawal of $200,000 from a hidden account, signed by my father. The date on the paperwork? A week ago. after the supposed vacation plans for Sophia had been set. "This isn't just about the house," Rachel said quietly, her voice tense. "Your family has been keeping things from you, Adam. There's more going on here than you realize. Someone is pulling strings." I couldn't breathe. My father had always been a steady, calm man, someone who handled things. But this was beyond the pale. $200,000? Where did that money go? What was he involved in? I couldn't stay here. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them by playing along anymore. "I need to get to the bottom of this," I said, standing up abruptly. Rachel shook her head. "Be careful, Adam. You're already too deep. If you go poking around, you're not just risking your family's future. You're risking your own." I ignored her, grabbing my jacket. "I can't sit back anymore. I need to know who's behind this." The door slammed shut behind me as I left. I didn't care if Rachel tried to warn me. She didn't understand. No one did. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just about the house anymore. There was something much darker hiding behind the scenes. And I was going to find out what it was. As I stepped into the night, the city lights flickered above me, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of the world pressing in from all sides. The rain poured down in sheets as I stepped into the car, slamming the door behind me. The windshield wipers slapped against the glass, but it was no use. The city blurred into a mess of lights and shadows, everything melding together in a way that felt chaotic. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't know who to trust anymore. Rachel's warning echoed in my mind, "Be careful, Adam. You're already too deep." She was right. But I couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything I had uncovered. I had to get to the bottom of it. I pulled up to the law office, my heart racing. The building loomed in front of me, its sleek glass windows reflecting the dark sky. Inside, the lights were still on. I went straight to the back entrance, avoiding the front door where I might be seen. This was no longer just about my family's financial troubles. It was something bigger, something far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. As I approached the elevator, I saw a shadow flicker through the frosted glass. Daniel Blake. I froze for a second, my body tensing. I hadn't planned for this. He was supposed to be at the office across town, handling the paperwork for the company. What was he doing here? My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Sophia. "You know what's happening, don't you?" I wasn't going to let them destroy everything. I almost didn't want to reply. The truth was, I didn't know who I was dealing with anymore. Was Sophia part of this whole mess, or was she just as much a pawn as I was? I needed answers. Fast. I stepped into the elevator, but as the doors slid shut, I heard footsteps behind me. I whipped around, but no one was there. The tension inside me spiked. This was exactly how it was when I was younger. My parents would ignore me until they needed me, and now, this? I wasn't about to let them play me again. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. I walked toward the back offices, where Rachel had her desk. The office was quiet, too quiet. I could hear the hum of the lights above, the faint sound of air conditioning, but there was no sign of Rachel. I pushed open the door to her office. Her computer screen was on, but she wasn't there. That's when I noticed it. A folder was open on her desk, a few pages sticking out at odd angles. I stepped closer, my eyes narrowing as I saw a familiar name at the top, Stephen Green. My father. I flipped through the papers. Bank statements. Property deeds. And there it was, a transfer of assets that made my stomach drop. The family house was listed as collateral for a massive loan from an unknown source. My father's name was signed on it, but it wasn't his handwriting. It was Rachel's. I stumbled back from the desk. Rachel. She'd been pulling the strings the entire time. I thought about what she had said earlier, "You're risking your own future, Adam." But now, it was clear, she wasn't just protecting herself, she had been working with Daniel Blake all along. My father wasn't just drowning in debt. He'd been dragged into something far worse, and Rachel had been complicit in it. I needed to confront her, but just as I turned to leave, I heard a noise. A door creaked open in the hallway, and then I saw her, Rachel, standing in the doorway, her eyes cold and calculating. "Looking for something?" she asked, her voice flat, like she was reading off a script. I was about to speak, but then I saw it, the faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. It wasn't a smile of sympathy, but something much darker. "You didn't think I was going to help you, did you, Adam?" Everything inside me froze. My blood ran cold. I shook my head. "You're working with Daniel. And my father? This whole thing, it's all a setup, isn't it?" Rachel's expression remained unchanged. She stepped forward, closing the door behind her. "It was always a setup, Adam. Your family's been in over its head for years. And you've just been too blind to see it." I took a step back. "You're a part of this. All of it?" She didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. I could see it in her eyes. The betrayal. The cold, calculated decision to make me a part of their scheme. And then it hit me. The truth wasn't just about the house or the money. This was about power. This was about using me as a pawn to destroy my family from the inside out. Daniel Blake had been manipulating me, yes, but Rachel had been using me too. She had been feeding me lies, playing on my need to protect my family. And now, she was closing the net around me. "You have no idea what you're really up against, Adam," Rachel said softly. "Daniel's already made his move. And you're too late to stop it." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but something in me held back. "You don't get to destroy everything, Rachel," I said, my voice low and steady. "Oh, but I already have," she said, her smile widening. And with that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me in the silence of her betrayal. As I stood there, looking at the papers on her desk, my thoughts raced. Rachel wasn't just some innocent bystander in this mess. She was as guilty as Daniel. She had been playing me from the beginning. I needed to act. The clock was ticking, and I didn't have much time before everything would fall apart. But before I could move, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Sophia. "Meet me at the pier. It's time for you to know the truth." I looked at the screen, the weight of the message sinking in. I wasn't ready for the truth. But I didn't have a choice. I grabbed the papers from the desk, stuffed them into my bag, and headed out the door. There was no turning back now. The game was on. I had barely parked my car when I felt it, the pulse. The thrum of something wrong in the air, like a storm gathering on the horizon. The city felt colder tonight, darker. Maybe it was the rain, maybe it was the weight of what I'd just uncovered, but something about it made me feel like I was being watched. I wasn't wrong. The building loomed ahead, a massive glass structure that should have felt welcoming but now felt like a cage. The law office where Rachel worked wasn't far from the heart of the city, but tonight, it felt miles away. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head as I approached the entrance. Was she part of this? Was she playing me from the start? "You should have known." The words echoed in my mind, like a voice from the past. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure if I could trust the person I had once called a friend. I reached for the door, but before I could turn the handle, I saw something move in the shadows. A figure. Too tall to be anyone I knew. Too quiet to be harmless. I froze. I turned, my heart pounding, and there it was. A flash of movement, someone darting around the corner of the building. No mistake. I was being followed. I shoved the door open and entered the lobby, my pulse quickening. Too late to run now, I thought. I couldn't outrun this anymore. The lies were unraveling, and I was standing in the middle of it, exposed. The receptionist gave me a brief, polite smile, but her eyes were wide. She knew. She must have. Can I help you? Her voice was tight, as if she was trying to hide something. Rachel Monroe, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, like I wasn't about to break everything wide open. I need to see her. Her fingers hesitated on the keyboard. She knew something. Her pause lasted a second too long. She's not in her office right now, the receptionist said quickly, a little too quickly. Can I take a message? I didn't want a message. I wanted answers. And I knew she had them. I barely stopped myself from demanding to see Rachel. Instead, I turned and walked toward the elevator, feeling the eyes on me. I could feel the weight of something bigger watching me. Someone was always a step behind. The elevator creaked as the doors opened. I stepped inside, pressing the button for the top floor, watching the numbers light up one by one. Each ding echoed in my ears, building tension. My breath was too loud in the silence. It wasn't just my mind that felt cramped, it was the air in this damn building. I could almost taste it. Distraction. A figure appeared in the corner of my eye. My heartbeat skipped. Rachel. She was standing there, her posture too rigid, like she had been waiting. She hadn't made a sound, just materialized out of thin air. You shouldn't be here, Adam, she said, her voice low, almost apologetic. You don't know what you're dealing with. I didn't care what she was trying to say. The pieces were falling into place too fast now. I've seen enough. The money, the signatures. You're involved in this. All of it. Her eyes flickered, then narrowed, a shadow passing over her face. She didn't deny it. I tried to protect you, she said, but there was no warmth in her tone. Just cold calculation. You weren't supposed to find out. Find out what? I shot back. That you've been lying to me? Using me to cover up your tracks? Rachel took a step closer. She didn't flinch when I raised my voice. It was never meant to go this far. But now, it's too late. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, cutting off the noise. As the elevator began to ascend, I felt like I was heading straight into the heart of the storm. Rachel was just another puppet. Someone was pulling the strings, and it wasn't her. Who is he, Rachel? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. Daniel Blake? Who is he really? Rachel didn't answer right away. She stared ahead, her hands clasped tightly together. He's just a business partner, she finally said, as if the words were too hard to say. But it's more than that, Adam. Much more. I took a step forward, closing the distance. I know you're lying. She snapped her head toward me, her eyes sharp. You don't understand. This isn't just about money. Or the house. It's about power. The elevator lurched to a stop. The lights flickered once. My heart skipped. This is bigger than you, Adam, she whispered. And in that moment, I knew she wasn't talking about money. Before I could say anything, the elevator doors flew open. I stepped out, my mind racing. The hallway was empty, sterile, cold. And then I saw it. A door left slightly ajar. I pushed it open, my instincts kicking in. Inside, I found a desk, papers scattered across it. My father's name stood out, marked by what looked like a transfer request. And underneath, a large loan agreement with Daniel Blake's name in bold. I grabbed the papers, my mind spinning. This was what they were hiding. The house wasn't just collateral. It was leverage. And Daniel Blake wasn't just some businessman. He was a threat, one that I had just walked into headfirst. Adam. The voice came from behind me. I didn't turn around. I don't know what you're playing at, Rachel. But I'm done being the pawn. She stepped closer. I could hear her footsteps. Slow, calculated. I warned you, Adam. Some things are better left unknown. I turned. Not this time, I said, my voice cold as ice. And then, out of nowhere, the lights went out. Complete darkness. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I couldn't see anything. Couldn't hear anything but the distant sound of my breath and the echo of Rachel's footsteps. And then, a soft laugh. Familiar, yet sinister. Daniel Blake. I wasn't alone anymore. I couldn't shake the tension. Every step I took, every breath I drew felt too loud, too heavy. I walked down the dimly lit hallway of the office building, the distant hum of fluorescent lights above echoing in my ears. The papers I'd grabbed from Rachel's desk burned a hole in my jacket pocket. I was too far in. The elevator doors opened, but my gaze never left the floor as I stepped out. The weight of the truth was suffocating. Don't trust her. Rachel's words from earlier haunted me, but it wasn't just Rachel I didn't trust anymore. The deeper I dug, the more I realized I had underestimated the danger. My own family was in on this, complicit in a scheme bigger than I could have ever imagined. I didn't just have to deal with Rachel, or Daniel Blake, or even my father. There were others. They were all part of the system, and I had walked right into it. I reached my car, gripped the door handle, but froze when I saw something flash in the corner of my eye. The streetlights were casting long shadows across the pavement, and just for a second, I thought I saw a figure, a silhouette standing too still near the alleyway. I slammed the door shut, heart racing. I knew it was nothing. Or was it? Too many eyes. I couldn't breathe. Someone was watching me. I started the car, hands tight on the wheel. The road stretched ahead, but nothing seemed clear. My mind flickered back to the papers in my bag. The signature, my father's handwriting, but the loan agreement wasn't just any debt. It was linked to the shell company Daniel Blake was tied to. Not only had my father been using the house as collateral for a massive loan, but it was also being funneled into accounts tied to criminal activity. The pieces were finally coming together. My family had sold their soul to Daniel Blake and his empire. I couldn't afford to waste time. I had to get to the pier. Sophia had messaged me, and it was my last chance to get answers. She was involved. No more lies. No more secrets. The drive felt endless, the street stretching out before me like a series of darkened veins. I pulled up to the pier and turned off the engine. The water crashed against the shore in the distance, the sound eerily calming. But I didn't feel calm. The air was thick with the promise of something worse to come. I walked toward the edge of the dock, the chill of the night seeping into my bones. My heart hammered in my chest, and as the wind picked up, I swore I saw movement in the shadows. Sophia was supposed to be here. But where was she? The darkness was deep, the moon hidden behind heavy clouds. I felt a prickling at the back of my neck. I wasn't alone. A soft voice broke through the silence. You came. Sophia. But her voice sounded off. I turned sharply, my eyes scanning the dark, looking for her. Where are you? I called, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm here. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Sophia. But she didn't look the same. Her face was pale, drawn, and her eyes, usually sharp and confident, were now clouded with something darker. You shouldn't have come, she said, her voice low and unsteady. They've been watching you, Adam. It's too late. Too late for what? I asked, stepping closer. What the hell is going on? You're part of this, aren't you? You and Dad and Rachel, all of you. Sophia didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped back, her gaze darting nervously over her shoulder. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We were supposed to be a family. But you don't understand, Adam. There are things you can't unsee. I took a step forward. What things, Sophia? What the hell are you talking about? But before she could respond, I heard something, a soft click, the unmistakable sound of a gun cocking. I froze. Sophia's eyes widened, and she stepped aside, revealing Daniel Blake, standing behind her, his smile cold and calculated. He was holding a gun, pointing it directly at me. "You're too late, Adam," Daniel said, his voice smooth and deadly. "You've been poking around where you don't belong." My stomach dropped. "What the hell is this, Daniel?" Sophia's expression faltered, like she was trying to decide whether to say something, anything, but she didn't. The air grew thicker, the tension so palpable it was suffocating. "You're out of your depth, Adam," Daniel continued, his eyes narrowing. "You really think you can just tear this all apart? It's been years in the making." I stood frozen, adrenaline coursing through me. I couldn't take my eyes off the gun. I had to think. I had to. A sharp laugh interrupted my thoughts. "Sophia, you don't get it, do you, Adam?" she said, stepping forward, her eyes full of something I couldn't read. "You never really mattered to them. Not like I did. You were always just a tool, a means to an end." My heart sank. "Why, Sophia?" I asked, barely able to hold back the hurt that twisted inside me. "Why are you helping him?" She turned her gaze toward Daniel, then back at me, her eyes distant. "Because I have to, Adam. Because we all do." The realization hit me like a freight train. Sophia wasn't the victim here. She wasn't the golden child. She was as much a part of this as Daniel. As my father. As Rachel. And me? I was just another pawn in the game. Suddenly, I didn't care about the damn house. Or the money. I cared about getting out alive. "Let her go, Daniel," I said, my voice steady, but my hands trembling. He laughed again. "Oh, Adam. You still don't understand, do you? You were never in control. Not then. Not now." Just then, the wind picked up, howling across the pier. The sound was deafening. My pulse quickened as the distance between us closed. But then, as if the universe had decided to throw me a bone, I saw it, a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. The distraction. A shadow rushed forward. I didn't know who it was at first. But I didn't care. The shot rang out. The gunshot echoed through the night, the sound deafening in the empty pier. For a second, I froze. My chest tightened, but I couldn't move, couldn't think. My vision blurred as adrenaline took over. Sophia's face, twisted in a way I couldn't quite read, but the image of Daniel standing behind her, holding the gun that was burned into my mind. Then, a movement, a figure darted from the shadows and pushed me aside. The shot that had been aimed at me missed, grazing the side of my jacket. I hit the ground hard, my breath escaping in a sharp gasp. The figure was gone before I could even process it, but a voice I didn't expect, came through the chaos. "Run. Now." It wasn't Sophia. It wasn't Daniel. I pushed myself to my feet, my pulse pounding in my ears. The pier seemed to stretch out endlessly ahead, a dark, menacing line under the swirling clouds. The shadows closed in on me, and I knew they knew where I was. I could hear footsteps behind me, too many, too fast. I didn't have time to stop and think. I just ran. The sound of feet on the wet ground followed. Rachel's voice, faint but clear in the night air, "You should have stayed out of this, Adam. Now you've ruined everything. Everything." It wasn't just the house. It wasn't just the betrayal I'd been uncovering piece by piece. This was about control. About something much deeper than I had realized. A life of lies, built on the false foundation of trust and family, all shattering right in front of me. I didn't stop running. Every breath felt harder to take, the cold air burning my lungs as I pushed myself further, faster, toward the end of the pier. I was close. I could see the streetlights up ahead, the promise of safety, of escape. But the figures behind me were getting closer. They were right there. I was almost there when I heard it, the loud crack of something in the distance, the unmistakable sound of a gunshot. I felt a sting in my shoulder and my knees buckled. The pain was immediate, sharp. My vision flickered as I stumbled, hands reaching for anything to break my fall. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't slow down. Not now. I found my footing again, and for the first time, I looked back. Rachel stood there at the end of the pier, the gun aimed at me, her face cold, emotionless. Sophia was beside her, eyes locked on me, the betrayal written clearly across her face. "You should have never come looking for answers, Adam," Rachel called, her voice chilling in the night air. "It's too late now." I took a step back. But something inside me clicked, something I hadn't realized until just that moment. They had already lost. "You're not in control anymore," I said, my voice steady, despite the blood pouring from my wound. I wasn't backing down. Not this time. Rachel's eyes flickered, just for a second. But it was enough. I glanced quickly to the side, just as a car sped into the parking lot, screeching to a halt. A door opened, and I saw an unfamiliar face step out, someone I had never seen before, someone with a badge. Rachel's eyes widened, her gun lowering slightly. The stranger, an investigator, I realized, took a step forward, his voice low, but commanding. "Drop it, Rachel. It's over." The tension snapped like a wire. For a brief moment, everything went silent, as if the world itself had decided to hold its breath. Then, the storm broke. I said, "Drop it." Rachel froze. Her hand was still around the gun, but now, there was fear in her eyes. The power she had held, the control she thought she could maintain, was slipping through her fingers. Sophia stepped forward, but her expression had changed. Gone was the defiance, the cool detachment. Now, she looked lost, scared, even. "I didn't know," she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. "I didn't know it would come to this." "You knew." The investigator's voice cut through the air. "All of you knew." I turned away, my chest heaving as I stumbled toward the safety of the car, the pain in my shoulder now a dull ache. The investigator had everything under control now, but my mind was racing. Was it really over? But as I got closer to the vehicle, something caught my eye, a slip of paper stuck in the door handle. A note. I reached for it with shaking hands, pulling it free. The paper was old, torn at the edges, and written in shaky handwriting. "You were never meant to find out, Adam. But it's too late now. Trust no one." I crumpled the note in my fist. Trust no one. That was the final twist. The truth was darker than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about money or family. It was about betrayal, the kind that ran so deep I could never trust anyone again. Not my father, not Sophia, not Rachel, not even myself. But as the investigator led Rachel and Sophia away, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth had come to light, the danger had passed, but the scars would never fade. I stood there in the rain, a cold wind biting at my skin. The city lights reflected off the wet ground, a ghostly reminder of everything that had happened. But the world kept turning, didn't it? The only thing I could control now was how I moved forward. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need anyone's approval. I had to be my own man. And I would never let anyone steal my peace again.